This is the fifth executive anti-axiom. And I've labeled this one, if you can't change the people, change the people. And I have heard this over the years, primarily from consultants, but also from some executives or something similar to that saying, which implies basically, the operating assumption is that people are the problem. And if you can't change them, then to act in a certain way or accept things in a certain way, then you change them out and get rid of those and get a new one. Now, to me, it kind of goes against my grain from a standpoint of you hired in these people to your organization, and oftentimes when change comes to the system, they aren't involved in any of the decision making process about their own work. And I've hit upon this theme, multiple times. Um, but the fact remains, especially long tenured employees that maybe have worked for the company maybe 10 or 20 years, it's, oh, they're an old dinosaur, they just won't change. And I don't think I've found many people that aren't willing to change if the change actually produces fruit, produces some types of results. The problem is that they're being dictated to, uh, oftentimes from executive teams. Um, and uh, you know the thought process of the operating assumption, people are the problem, it's rarely the case. Those that resist the existing system or a new one that's being replaced are pretty much pegged as the problem. And you hear those phrases. They're just not on board with us. They just don't listen. They're a square peg in a round hole. They don't fit our culture. They are always criticizing, and those are the things that you begin to hear, and then it develops a certain, uh, it's like a snowball rolling downhill, that gathers up more snow, and then it becomes this, oh well, they're the problem. We gotta, uh, look for someone to blame. But the bottom line is the person is not the problem. I find that 98+% of the time it's the system that they're working in or that's being dictated to from the hierarchy. Someone imposing their will on somebody else, and if you just aren't, giving encouraging words or positive things for something that you perceive does not work, then you're a problem. And so when things go wrong, they look for someone to blame. What's somebody with that negative attitude? Well, it's not. Oftentimes people have negative attitudes for a reason, and more often than not, it's because of the things that I just mentioned, which is they're not participating in any of the decision making process. They're being dictated to from the hierarchy. Oh, we're the new management team, and we're going to come in and tell you to do this. And so my message in this episode is primarily, focus on the system first. And I got to tell you, most executives lack synthetic thinking, which is obviously a focus of my whole um, advising to executives. Uh, it's rarely taught in business classes. Executive education primarily deals with things, a few uh, skills like data, but mostly leadership types of skills, empathy, empowerment, communication, and then they claim to have something around uh, vision and strategic thinking, but I very rarely find that they're deep enough to really help an executive. And so people muddle along and they'll try and figure out what to do because, after all, they are the executive and they can make these decisions. Um, but they do it in a fashion in which the hierarchy becomes the focal point of everything that's going on. And new management teams really struggle with this, and especially new executives, because they maybe have come from another company and their expectation is they're going to do these great things. And in order to do great things, I've got to make people do what I need them to do in order to, come, go through the process of the system that I have in my head, and the way I think things should work from ABC company, whether that's within the same industry or from without that industry, it doesn't matter. They just come in with an attitude to impose the will of I know exactly what to do type of thing, and that approach sometimes is required when things are desperate. I've seen it in turnaround types of situation, but ultimately that's just you're going to have a whole path of destruction laid behind you, and some people take that attitude that's fine, and I just don't take that attitude, especially after seeing the things I have seen over the years. And so developing not the analytical thinking and the soft skills, and you can be empathetic till the cows come home, or supposedly empowering people. It still has a ring of I'm allowing you to do this, as I'm giving you my power, type of thing, and people, it's lost in what actually can help, employees perform better and developing a good system. So few execs lack these synthetic skills and really methods to improve their business. And so the vision and strategic thinking really, even though it's kind of taught in schools, it's usually taught by professors that have never actually done vision and strategic thinking. But it you require having synthetic thinking skills, that you can see a system and not just the pieces that are there and how it's performing, and then methods to gain that systems thinking and then capitalize on it within their organization. So, before you start changing the people, change the system that they work in. I think you'll find that your results are much better. You won't lose people within the organization. You need them to get on board anyway with what you're doing, because they can certainly sabotage some of the things that you're doing. That's my message this week. And remember, there is always a better way.